When I first heard that electric vehicles, which feel like the absolute cutting edge tech right now, were actually first commercially available way back at the end of the 19th century, well, it really made me scratch my head.
It's wild, isn't it?
Yeah. How did something so old suddenly become like the future again?
It is a fascinating historical loop. It really shows how, innovation isn't always about something brand new. Sometimes it's about revisiting an old idea when the tech finally catches up, and maybe more importantly, when what society needs actually aligns with what that old idea offered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay, that begs the question then. What happened to them for almost a century? Why did they vanish? And why are they back now, seemingly stronger than ever?
Right.
So today, we're going to peel back the layers on that very question. We're doing a deep dive into the, well, sometimes perplexing, often exhilarating world of electric cars.
Uh,
And our spotlight today is on Cewmlator, a Duxland-based manufacturer that's gone all in on battery electric vehicles, BEVs.
and our mission for you, our listener, is to try and cut through some of the noise, clarify the complexities, because, let's face it, this sector is evolving so fast.
Really is.
We've really gone to town on the sources for this one. We've got market data, company financials, deep dive reports, even some really insightful questions from young readers of Happy Comic, actually.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so by the time we're done, hopefully you'll feel equipped with a more nuanced understanding of the whole EV landscape.
Our goal is really to empower you with knowledge. Whether you're maybe thinking about buying an EV yourself, or you're interested in sustainability, or maybe you just want to stay ahead of the curve in an industry that's changing so much so quickly.
Right.
We'll explore the current state of EVs, the challenges, the opportunities for companies like Cewmlator, and, importantly, what it all means for you.
Okay, so let's start digging into that surprising history first.
Yeah, let's do it. So we teased this historical bit. Electric cars were, cruising around in the late 1800s, but then, poof, by the 1920s, they were pretty much gone from the mainstream.
Yeah, largely gone.
What was it about the internal combustion engine, the ICE car, that let it just dominate for, almost 100 years?
Well, it's a really compelling story of competition and shifting priorities.
Yeah.
Early electric cars actually had some advantages. They were quieter, definitely cleaner, easier to start than those early petrol cars.
Right, no hand cranking.
Exactly, no hand cranking. But the technological advances in petrol engines just took off incredibly quickly.
Ah.
The key factors were, well, better performance, lower production costs eventually, and the big one, much greater range. Plus, you suddenly had petrol stations popping up everywhere.
Okay, the infrastructure piece.
Huge.
Yeah.
Drivers could refuel in minutes, go hundreds of miles. Early EVs just couldn't compete with their heavy limited range batteries and hardly any charging points.
Makes sense.
And then you had Henry Ford's assembly line. Suddenly, ICE cars were affordable for lots more people. So while the idea electric power was sound, the practicalities just favored petrol for almost a century.
So the idea didn't completely die out for everything, just for personal cars, right? We still used electric power in some places.
It's precisely. Yeah, passenger EVs faded, but electricity was still great for other, more specialized vehicles. Think about forklift trucks and warehouses.
Oh, good example.
They've been electric for decades. In that kind of controlled environment, being close to charging isn't an issue, and zero emissions indoors is a massive plus for air quality.
Right.
So this history is really important context. Today's EV boom isn't just some fad, it's a resurgence, driven by new tech, yes, but also by very different societal priorities than 100 years ago.
And those new priorities, the ones really sparking this current EV revolution, they started gaining momentum around the 2000s, didn't they? That's when commercial production really kicked off again, largely driven by environmental concerns.
Absolutely. The whole perception of electric power being cleaner really gained traction as awareness about climate change and air pollution grew, and governments worldwide started pushing for emission reductions. Road transport was a big target. We started seeing not just talk, but actual legislation. Things like potential bans on new ICE car sales, like Duxland aiming for 2030.
Right, those deadlines.
Yeah, but beyond bans, there were also incentives. Purchase subsidies, tax breaks, grants for home chargers, public money going into charging networks.
Oh, carrots and sticks.
Exactly. Carrots and sticks. It creates this dynamic where it's both a huge opportunity and massive pressure for manufacturers. And for consumers, it frames switching to an EV as, well, not just a personal choice, but maybe part of a bigger collective effort.
Yeah, that explains the why behind the shift we're seeing everywhere now.
It does, from policy down to the showroom floor.
Okay, so it's policy, it's society, it's tech. Now, when we say electric cars, It's actually a bit of an umbrella term, isn't it? There's this whole alphabet soup of acronyms. BEV, PHEV, HEV. Can you help us decode what these different types actually mean for someone driving them?
Yeah, it's really essential to understand the differences because not all electric cars are the same. Let's break down the main types, starting with the most electric.
Okay.
First up, battery electric vehicles, BEVs. These are like the pure electric experience, powered only by big battery packs you charge by plugging in.
Right. No petrol tank at all.
None. The big pros are zero tailpipe emissions while you're driving, and they're super quiet. Downsides. Well, if you run out of charge, far from a point, you can't just bring a can of electricity. You need a special low-loader truck for recovery, usually.
Ah, that's tricky.
And range varies a lot, maybe 160 kilometers for a small city car, up to over 600 for some high-end ones. Depends on the battery, how you drive, even the weather. And crucially for our discussion today, Cewmlator only makes BEVs. That's their whole strategy. A pure electric play.
Got it. So BEVs are the full commitment. What's the next step down, electrically speaking?
That would be plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, PHEVs. These have both worlds, an electric motor and battery, and a traditional petrol or diesel engine.
So you can choose.
Often, yeah. You plug them in to charge the battery, which is smaller than a BEVs. They typically give you maybe 50 to 80 kilometers of pure electric driving, often enough for a daily commute.
Okay, that covers a lot of short trips.
Exactly. But the real flexibility is the engine. If the battery runs out, it just switches over to petrol or diesel. No range anxiety for long trips, just fill up at a normal petrol station.
The best of both worlds, maybe?
For some, yes. But there are trade-offs. They carry the weight of both systems, which can affect efficiency. And sometimes the petrol tanks are smaller, meaning more fuel stops on those long journeys when you're not using the battery. Companies like Duxland make both BEVs and PHEVs, hedging their bets a bit, you could say.
Right, offering that stepping stone. Okay, so after PHEVs, we get into the more conventional hybrids.
We do. Next are hybrid electric vehicles, HEVs. You might hear them called self-charging hybrids.
Yeah, I've heard that term.
These mainly use a petrol or diesel engine, but that engine also acts like a generator to keep a small battery topped up. The key thing is you cannot plug them in externally.
Okay, so the engine does all the charging.
Correct. The batteries are pretty small, only good for maybe a few kilometers of electric driving at low speeds before the engine kicks in again to make more electricity. In fact, the engine only makes electricity. It doesn't drive the wheels directly on its own petrol power.
Interesting distinction.
Yeah. They're more fuel efficient than regular IC cars, lower emissions, but very limited pure electric capability.
Gotcha. And finally, there's one category that really stretches the definition of electric car, doesn't it?
That would be the mild hybrid electric vehicles, or MHEVs. These have a small electric motor connected to the regular engine. Its main job is just to assist the engine a little boost when accelerating, maybe helping save fuel when cruising.
So it just helps out.
Exactly. It uses regenerative braking, capturing energy when you slow down to charge a tiny battery. But, and this is key, MHEVs cannot run on electric power alone, ever. The electric motor just gives the petrol or diesel engine a bit of a hand.
So is it even fair to call them electric cars?
Well, that's highly debatable.
Yeah.
Because the electric part is so minimal, it makes a big difference in statistics, too. In Duxland, if you count MHEVs as basically IC cars, then non-electric cars make up 61% of new registrations. If you count them separately, it's only 45%.
Wow, that's a huge difference in how you perceive the market shift.
It really is. It changes the narrative about how fast things are really changing.
Okay, that breakdown is super helpful. It shows there's a whole spectrum of electrification. But even with all these options and the environmental push, the move away from pure petrol and diesel isn't happening as fast as some headlines suggest, is it? Why is that?
No, it's definitely more gradual. It's a really astute observation. Despite those ambitious government targets, like Duxland's 2030 goal for banning new ICE sales, the reality is the full transition is proving much slower and more complex than maybe first thought.
Yeah, you see the headlines about the bans and think, okay, petrol cars are done for, but then you look at what people are actually buying.
Exactly. The fundamental thing is demand for traditional IC cars is still surprisingly strong. And while EV demand is growing fast, it's not yet overwhelming enough to force a really rapid switch across the board.
So there's a gap between policy and the market.
A very noticeable gap. And for you, the listener, it means those bans mainly affect new car sales, the used market for petrol and diesel cars. That's likely going to be around for many, many years after those deadlines. It offers familiarity and often a lower price point.
Right, so it's more evolution than revolution still.
Precisely. It's a longer journey than some might expect.
And a huge piece of that journey, probably the biggest hurdle for many people, is just the upfront cost. EVs are generally more expensive to buy than equivalent ICE cars.
Absolutely. That's a major barrier, especially when the economy feels uncertain.
Right.
Manufacturers have sunk billions into R&D retooling factories.
Mm-hmm.
They need to recoup those massive investments.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, EVs, especially BEVs, need really expensive bits, particularly those huge battery packs. Even hybrids carrying both systems have extra cost and weight baked in.
Is that price difference coming down at all?
It is, gradually. Economies of scale are kicking in, battery tech is improving. But it's still a significant factor for a lot of buyers.
Yeah.
And it's not just the car's price tag, is it? You might need that home rapid charger installed that's another, $1,500 potentially?
Yeah, that's not insignificant.
And then there's the really scary number, the potential cost of replacing a battery down the line. We're talking possibly $20,000 or more.
Wow. $20,000 for a battery. That's like the price of a whole other small car.
It is. And that potential future cost, combined with the higher initial price, leads right into the other big worry. Range anxiety and the whole charging situation.
Right. How far can I go? Where can I charge it? When can I charge it?
It's a powerful psychological barrier, even though statistically most car journeys are actually quite short.
Yeah, you mentioned the average trip in Duxland is only 15 kilometers.
Just 15 kilometers, and only about 1% of journeys are over 150 kilometers. So for most daily driving, even a BEV with a fairly modest range, say 160 kilometers, should be fine.
But people worry about those longer trips, the exceptions.
Exactly. And the advertised range isn't always the real-world range. Driving style, speed, heating, or AC use, even cold weather, they can all cut into that range significantly.
So great for the commute, maybe trickier for the holiday road trip.
That's a perception, yeah.
Yeah.
It remains a big deterrent for some.
And it's not just about the range when it's new, is it?
Yeah.
Batteries degrade over time, like in our phones.
That's a crucial point, often glossed over. Rechargeable batteries do lose capacity over time and with charge cycles. An EV's range will gradually decrease, and charging might take a bit longer as it ages.
Which must affect resale value, too.
Definitely. Manufacturers know this, so they offer long warranties. Cewmlator gives 8 years or 160,000 kilometers on the battery, promising to replace it if the range drops by 20% or more if you've done the required maintenance.
Okay, so there's some protection.
There is. Attomm has a similar warranty, maybe a slightly higher 30% degradation threshold. But the fact these warranties exist acknowledges that degradation is expected. And that potential $20,000 plus replacement cost. It really could reach a point where it's cheaper to scrap an otherwise good EV than replace the battery. That's a huge issue for long-term ownership and sustainability.
A massive hidden cost. Okay, so let's talk about actually charging the thing. How easy or hard is it in practice?
Well, it really depends on your living situation. The ideal scenario, you live in a house with a driveway or garage. Off-street parking.
Right, you can just plug it in overnight.
Exactly. You can use a regular wall socket, but that's very slow. Or you install a dedicated home rapid charger. That's the $1,500 job, maybe more if your home's wiring needs an upgrade.
But charging at home is cheaper than petrol generally?
Oh yeah, usually much cheaper per mile. That's a big selling point. And about 80% of BEV owners do have home chargers, relying on them for most of their charging.
Okay, but that leaves 20%, a fifth of owners who don't have off-street parking. People in apartments, terraces, what about them? Public charging.
Exactly. That 20% are entirely reliant on the public charging network. Plus, many others use public chargers to top up, maybe for 20–50% of their needs. So it's essential.
And how is that public network experience?
Mixed. Let's say mixed. Public charging is almost always more expensive than charging at home. Sometimes, especially at motorway services, it can even cost more than petrol for the same distance.
Really? More than petrol?
It can happen, yeah. And availability is another big headache. Plenty of chargers in busy city centers, sure. But rural areas, less wealthy neighborhoods, often very limited because companies don't see enough profit potential to install them.
Because installation is expensive.
Incredibly expensive. Which brings us to that $60,000 figure.
Right, break that down again. How does it get so high for one public rapid charger?
Okay, so the rapid charger unit itself might be $15,000. Installation, another $5,000. Permits, approvals may be $4,000. But the huge cost is connecting it to the grid that often requires significant upgrades, potentially $20,000. Then project management on top, maybe $15,000.
Wow, add that all up, $60,000 for one charger.
Yep, $60,000 Duxland.
That completely changes the perspective, doesn't it? It explains why councils and companies are hesitant. It suggests widespread public charging might always need government help.
It strongly suggests that, yes, it's probably not going to be a purely commercial, profitable venture everywhere, which could create a real divide between those who can charge easily at home and those who can't. A two-tier EV world.
A charging postcode lottery, essentially.
Pretty much. And then, on top of the cost and patchy availability, there's the complexity. In Duxland, you've got nearly 80,000 public charge points, but they're run by about 12 different companies.
Oh, great. So you need multiple apps, multiple accounts.
Often, yes. Different apps, RFID cards, QR codes. It can be a real faff. And pricing varies wildly, too. Cheaper in competitive city centers, often pricier on motorways where they have a captive audience.
This sounds like a bit of a Wild West.
It can feel that way sometimes. And we haven't even talked about charging speeds properly.
All right. Are they all super fast?
Not at all. You've got your slow or fast chargers, the kind you might find at a supermarket or workplace. They can take 7-9 hours for a decent charge, say 20% to 80%. Fine if you're parked for a long time.
Yeah.
Then you have the rapid or ultra-rapid ones, mainly at service stations or dedicated hubs. These are the game changers, potentially doing that 20–80% charge in as little as 25 minutes, much closer to a petrol stop experience.
But presumably much more expensive to install and use.
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
Both for the provider and often for the user.
Okay, so higher costs, range anxiety, battery degradation worries, charging complexities, fragmented networks. It paints a pretty challenging picture.
It does.
And yet, despite all that, EV sales are booming globally. How do we square that circle? Who are the big players making this happen despite the hurdle?
It really is a paradox, isn't it? But it shows the sheer momentum behind this shift. Despite all those very real challenges, EV sales have just exploded. It's a genuine market transformation we're watching unfold.
Exploded is a strong word. Give us the numbers. How big is this boom?
Okay, get this. In 2024 alone, 17 million EVs were sold globally.
17 million.
17 million. That represented 25%, a quarter, of all new car sales worldwide. 1 in 4.
Wow. That's huge.
It is. The global EV market value, around $250 billion now. Now, that market share varies a lot by country. It depends heavily on government policies, charging infrastructure. You see anything from 12% in some places up to 85% in pioneers like Norway.
85% in Norway. Incredible.
Yeah, they went all in early. And the outlook is still really positive. Hopes are pinned on production costs coming down, especially for batteries. Advances in battery chemistry, that's the key driver everyone's watching. Better range, lower cost. That's the holy grail.
It feels like a tipping point has definitely been reached, despite the challenges.
I think so. It's an undeniable shift.
So in this exploding market, who are the giants? Who's leading the charge? And where does Cewmlator fit into this picture?
Well, the global EV market is currently dominated by 3 main players. Attomm, Duxland, and our focus today, Cewmlator. Now, Attomm and Cewmlator are interesting because they've both gone for that pure play strategy. They only make BEVs. Attomm has slightly edged ahead in market share by revenue, around 16.7%, with Cewmlator very close behind at 15.4%.
Right there with them.
Neck and neck, really.
Yeah.
Then there's Duxland, holding about 15.9% share. They take a different path, producing both BEVs and PHEVs, those plug-in hybrids.
Turning to both camps.
Exactly. Hedging their bets, perhaps, or targeting customers not quite ready for full electric. But beyond those top 3, you got a mix of others in the top 10. Elcro, Goris, Captro, Lapout, Novton, Runbort, Trafter. A lot of familiar names.
And are they all in on EVs, too?
Not necessarily. Many of those are traditional manufacturers who still have a big portfolio of ICE cars, maybe some mild hybrids, MHEVs, some self-charging hybrids, HEVs. Their approach is often more diversified, more cautious compared to the laser focus of Cewmlator and Attomm.
So Cewmlator really stands out with that complete commitment to BEVs. That must have been a huge decision for a company with a history in traditional cars. Tell us more about Cewmlator itself. How did they get here?
They have quite a long history, actually. Established back in 1952, originally making standard ICE cars, they went public on the Duxland Stock Exchange in 1968.
So a proper legacy automaker.
Absolutely. And their brand identity was always pretty consistent. Mid-market focus, offering good value, cars that were enjoyable to drive, and they always had a reputation for integrating new tech and innovative manufacturing. Safety was a big focus, too.
Okay, a solid foundation. So when did they make that huge pivot to electric? That leap?
Their first real step was in 2012. They launched their first EV, then a BEV, with a decent 219-kilometer range for the time. They were actually quite early among the mainstream players to really
Just
commit.
ahead of the curve.
Somewhat, yeah. They carved out a niche quite early with buyers looking specifically for fossil fuel-free options. But the massive shift, the point of no return, was by 2020.
Okay, what happened then?
They completely phased out all ICE car production. Finished, done.
Wow, that's brave and risky.
Hugely risky, but ultimately, it defined them. They became a pure-play BEV manufacturer. Their strategic focus became crystal clear. Produce BEV models that aim to be best in class for range, performance, and value within their specific segments.
That intense focus must give them an edge, right? No distractions from legacy ICE business.
That's the theory, and arguably the practice. It differentiates them massively from companies still trying to manage both worlds. It likely allows for faster R&D cycles, a clearer message to consumers, and a workforce fully dedicated to the electric future.
Okay, so that explains their strategy. What about the cars themselves? What does Cewmlator actually offer today? What's the lineup look like?
They currently have 4 distinct BEV models, each targeting a different part of the market. And it's worth saying, they're generally very competitive, often ranking in the top 3 for range in their respective classes.
Okay, let's hear about them. Start small.
Right. Smallest is the Tynie. It's a compact BEV, really designed for city commuting. Seats 2, limited luggage space, range is 143 kilometers.
Basic urban transport.
Pretty much. And it's most popular in its base trim level. Cewmlator offers different trim levels, base, luxe, and ground luxe.
Ah, like different spec levels.
Exactly. Base is the cheapest, no frills, lighter materials like fabric seats, thin carpets. For the Tynie and the next model up, the Trapp, the base trim, even leaves out the sound system to save a bit of weight and electricity, maximizing range.
Really stripping it back for efficiency. Who buys the Tynie base?
People focus purely on cost and short city hops. Maximum range for minimum outlay.
Got it. What's the next step up from the Tynie?
That's the Trapp. Still a relatively small BEV, but more versatile. Seats 5, decent boot space with folding rear seats for flexibility, and a range of 254 kilometers. It's designed to be a bit sportier to drive to.
So more of an all-rounder.
Yeah, handles city driving well, but also okay on faster roads. For the Trapp, the most popular trim is Luxe.
Okay, what does Luxe add?
Better quality materials, more features like satellite navigation. The folding rear seats in the Trapp and the bigger SUV are also more versatile in Luxe trim. It hits a sweet spot for people wanting more comfort and features without going top-line price-wise.
Makes sense. And for families needing more space.
Then you're looking at the Twistx. That's their BEV SUV. Seats 5 adults comfortably, really big boot, again with clever folding seats for massive cargo space if needed. Range is a solid 375 kilometer.
Getting into proper family car territory there.
Definitely. And like the Trapp, the Luxe trim is the most popular for the Twistx. Families appreciate the extra comfort and features for everyday life, but maybe don't need the absolute top spec.
Right, balancing practicality and comfort. And what about the fun stuff? The performance option.
Ah, yes. For the enthusiasts, there's the Skkorch. That's their BEV sports car.
Skkorch. Great name.
Isn't it? 2 seats, enough boot space for a weekend away. Performance is, well, rapid. 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just 3.1 seconds.
Whoa, that's seriously quick.
It is. And it still manages a 400-kilometer range. Now, the Skkorch is marketed as a luxury item, so most buyers go for the top Grand Luxe trim.
Okay, what defines Grand Luxe?
Top-tier everything.
Yeah.
Leather seats, thick carpets, premium sound systems, reversing cameras, all the bells and whistles. Here, the buyers prioritize features and luxury, and they're willing to potentially sacrifice a tiny fraction of ultimate range to get all the toys.
So a really well-thought-out range, from basic city runabout to high-performance luxury, and they have a reputation for solid build quality, too.
They do. Quality and innovation are part of their brand DNA, and that's backed up by that strong warranty we mentioned, 8 years, or 160,000 kilometers on the car and battery, with the battery replacement guarantee if range drops more than 20%.
That warranty provides crucial reassurance, especially with those battery replacement costs looming.
It absolutely does. It addresses a key consumer concern head-on.
Okay, so we know the cars. Where do they actually build these things? What does Cewmlator's manufacturing setup look like? It must be pretty complex.
It's definitely global and highly specialized. They have 6 main factories. For example, here in Duxland, the northern factory makes the Twistx SUV, and the central factory builds the Skkorch sports car.
Okay.
But crucial components come from elsewhere. All the lithium batteries are made in their Eastland factory. All the electric motors come from Farland. Then the Trapp cars are assembled in Winland, and the little tiny cars in Groveland.
Wow, that's a truly distributed model. Specialized factories for key parts.
Exactly. It allows for focused expertise and potentially economies of scale for those critical components like batteries and motors.
Let's talk more about those batteries from Eastland. You mentioned they're really integrated into the car.
Extremely integrate. They're not just bolted in, they're designed into the structure of the car body, often forming part of the floor pan.
So the car is built around the battery.
Essentially, yes. Each model needs its own specific shape and size of battery pack. They're large, heavy, and crucially, they can't be easily removed without pretty much dismantling the car.
That sounds challenging from a manufacturing and repair perspective.
It definitely introduces challenges. The factories are highly automated, as you'd expect, but immense care is needed during assembly, precisely because the body is built around this massive high-voltage component.
High voltage meaning dangerous.
Very. We're talking 400 volts or more. A short circuit during assembly could cause a serious electrical fire. And because the battery is so integral, if there's a production error related to it, fixing it is incredibly difficult and expensive.
So the design offers benefits like low center of gravity, but creates these manufacturing headaches.
Exactly. Trade-offs, as always.
And their reliance purely on BEVs must make their supply chain for battery materials like lithium absolutely critical.
Immense. They are a huge user of lithium, cobalt, nickel, all those key battery metals. And that's where some of the environmental question marks come in, too. Mining and transporting those materials, especially lithium, is a big part of an EV's manufacturing emissions footprint.
Right, the embedded emissions before the car even hits the road. We'll definitely come back to that. What about selling and servicing these cars?
They use a global network of independent dealerships, about 4,600 of them.
Independent, not company-owned.
Correct. Each dealership is responsible for sales, customer feedback, maintaining showrooms, providing demo cars, employing trained sales staff, and crucially having properly equipped workshops with technicians trained specifically for BEV maintenance and repair. It's quite different from servicing an ICE car.
Yeah, I bet. High voltage training needed. Okay, we've got a good picture of the cars, how they're made, sold, and the challenges involved. Let's pivot now to look inside Cewmlator itself, its core strategy, the leadership, and its financial health. So behind every successful company, there's usually a clear sense of purpose. What drives Cewmlator? What's their stated mission, their vision?
They're very clear about this, and it really does seem to genuinely underpin their strategy. Their mission is to make the world a better place by providing desirable and sustainable motor vehicles.
Okay, strong claim.
It is. Their vision is to be the leading manufacturer of sustainable motor vehicles. And their core values center on constant innovation, commitment to sustainability, highest quality, and really listening to customer needs.
That emphasis on sustainable really ties into their BEV-only choice, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's not just tacked on. It reflects the market drivers and their strategic positioning. They're selling not just transport, but an ideal of cleaner transport, which resonates strongly with a growing segment of buyers.
It feels authentic to their brand. So who are the people actually making the big decisions? Who's on the board at Cewmlator? The leadership team must be key to navigating this complex market.
They've assembled a really interesting and diverse board, seemingly with expertise tailored to the EV challenge. Take the CEO, Zhu. She has a background in chemistry and actually worked for a lithium mining company for 5 years before joining Cewmlator.
Wow, direct experience in the core battery materials.
Exactly. She came up through R&D, ran a factory, was operations director, then became CEO. That's deep technical and operational grounding.
Impressive. Who else stands out?
Well, the R&D director, Professor Anna Pohl, doctorate in aeronautical engineering and expert in aerodynamics. Minimizing drag, crucial for EV range. She came from another major car maker's R&D.
Aeronautics. That makes sense for efficiency.
It does. Then you have strong financial oversight with Suhas Pathak, the finance director, an accountant with economics background who rose through Cewmlator's ranks. And importantly, there's a real focus on sustainability governance. Stamachios Katsorchis, an independent director, is a lawyer, former parliament member focused on sustainability committees, chairs a sustainable business charity.
So legal, political, and sustainability expertise right there on the board.
Yeah, and there are others with strong engineering backgrounds too, like Professor Salem Hegesy, another independent director with an electrical engineering doctorate.
Yeah.
It feels like a deliberately constructed team, technical depth in batteries and engineering, financial rigor, operational experience, and that strong sustainability focus. It's not just a generic board.
It really sounds like they've got the right mix of skills for a BEV company. And the executives below the board, they have clearly defined roles.
Very clearly defined. Operations Director covers factories, HR, safety. R&D handles research, product development, and drives the sustainability strategy. Finance looks after reporting, accounting, treasury. Sales manages marketing, dealerships, customer service, PR standard roles, but likely executed with that BEV focus.
And they have the usual board committees for governance, audit, risk.
Yes, all the key ones. Audit, risk, and CSR, corporate social responsibility, remuneration, nomination. Non-executive directors play a big role on these, providing independent oversight. And the chief internal auditor reports directly to the head of the audit committee, which is good practice for independence.
So strong leadership, clear roles, solid governance structure. But even with all that, the EV market is risky. What does Cewmlator see as its main threats, and how do they plan to handle them?
They're quite open about the risks in their reporting. A big one is simply increased competition.
Yeah.
Not just from other BEV specialists like Attomm, but also the legacy giants throwing huge resources at catching up in the EV space.
Right. The established players waking up. How do they fight that?
Their main defense is relentless product development and innovation, keeping their cars desirable, efficient, maybe slightly ahead of the curve. That dedicated R&D director and focus is key here.
Makes sense. What else worries them?
Changing consumer preferences, especially around charging. If public charging doesn't improve fast enough, or if maybe another technology emerges.
Like hydrogen, perhaps, though that seems further off.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Their mitigation is to work with regulators and charging companies to push for better infrastructure while constantly reinforcing the message that BEVs are the best, cleanest solution right now.
Okay, influencing the ecosystem.
Exactly. Then there's government policy shifts. New emissions rules, changes to subsidies. These can appear quickly. They mitigate by engaging directly with government agencies, trying to stay informed and influence policy constructively.
Being proactive politically.
And, of course, economic factors. Interest rates go up, people worry about jobs. That affects big purchases like cars. People might opt for cheaper alternatives, maybe delay buying.
How did they handle economic uncertainty?
By monitoring trends closely, adjusting production plans, managing costs tightly to keep offering value, and really emphasizing the total cost of ownership benefits of EVs' lower running cost, potentially offsetting the higher purchase price.
Okay. And what about that critical supply chain, especially for lithium? That must be a huge risk, given their BEV-only strategy.
Absolutely massive. Supply chain disruption for lithium or other key battery metals is a major vulnerability. Their mitigation strategy is twofold. Firstly, build really strong, long-term relationships with suppliers. Treat them well, so Cewmlator gets priority if shortages hit.
Being a good customer.
Basically, yes. And secondly, maintain strategic inventories of critical materials to buffer against short-term disruptions.
Building a safety stock.
Exactly. And one final risk, currency movements. Being global, with factories and sales worldwide, fluctuations in exchange rates can significantly impact profits. They have a dedicated, well-resourced Treasury Department managing this complex financial risk actively.
That's a comprehensive look at the risks and how they're thinking about them. It sounds like they're well aware of the challenges. So how has all this strategy and risk management played out financially? Let's get into the numbers. How is Cewmlator actually performing?
The numbers, particularly comparing 2025 to 2024, tell a very positive story. Really strong growth, and maybe more importantly, surging profitability.
Okay, give us the highlights. Revenue.
Revenue jumped significantly from $31.8 billion in 2024 up to $38.2 billion in 2025. That's a solid 20% increase in 1 year. Shows good market traction.
20% growth is impressive in any market. What about profit?
Even better. Operating profit more than doubled from $3.0 billion to $5.6 billion. And profit for the year, the bottom line, also more than doubled from $1.2 billion up to $3.1 billion.
Wow. Doubling profit on 20% revenue growth? That suggests they're getting much more efficient.
Exactly. It points to strong operational control, good pricing power, effective cost management, or a combination of all three. They also grew their assets up to $52.5 billion and increased borrowing slightly to $20 billion, likely funding that growth and investment.
Those are genuinely stellar results. How do they stack up against their main BEV competitor, Attomm? You said Attomm had slightly higher revenue.
Correct. Attomm's revenue was higher at $41.9 billion in 2025, up from $36.5 billion. Their operating profit also grew to $5.1 billion from $3.1 billion, and their profit for the year increased to $2.4 billion from $1 billion.
Okay, so Attomm is bigger in terms of revenue and assets. You mentioned their assets and borrowings were higher too.
Yes, Attomm is the larger company overall. D$62.1 billion in assets, D$25 billion in borrowings. But here's the really interesting part. Despite Attomm having higher revenue, Cewmlator's profit for the year, D$3.1 billion, is significantly higher than Attomm's D$2.4 billion.
Ah, so Cewmlator is actually more profitable even though it sells less.
Exactly. They are more efficient at turning those sales dollars into actual profit on the bottom line.
Why might that be?
Could be several things. Maybe Cewmlator has better control over manufacturing costs. Maybe their specific model mix yields higher margins. Perhaps their focused R&D on only BEVs is paying off in efficiency, while Attomm still carries some legacy costs or complexities. Maybe their marketing is more effective per dollar spent. It's a really strong sign of Cewmlator's operational strength.
That profitability difference is a key takeaway. It suggests Cewmlator isn't just growing, it's growing smart. And what about market risk, like stock volatility?
Their beta is 0.56.
Yeah.
Beta measures how much a stock's price moves compared to the overall market. A beta below 1, like Cewmlator's 0.56, suggests it's less volatile than the market average. Investors often like that relative stability.
Okay, so financially, Cewmlator looks strong, efficient, and relatively stable. But we keep coming back to this sustainability question. How does a company making products with significant manufacturing emissions square that with its sustainable mission? Let's dive into that.
Right, that's the crucial question. And Cewmlator addresses it directly in their sustainability report. They cover governance, strategy, risks, and metrics related to sustainability. It's not just an afterthought.
So they are tracking the stuff formally. How does that commitment show up in practice, especially given that issue with battery production emissions?
Well, governance-wise, the board gets regular sustainability updates, and they have that specific risk and CSR committee overseeing things. Strategically, they focus on the communities near their factories and on meeting customer transport needs sustainably tying back to that mission. But importantly, they are upfront about the challenge. They openly acknowledge that manufacturing a BEV, mainly because of the battery, creates more emissions than making an equivalent IC car.
That's quite an admission. It's honest, but also highlights the paradox.
It does. It's a fundamental issue for the entire industry. So their mitigation efforts are focused heavily on the battery itself. They're investing significantly in R&D to design batteries that last longer, use fewer scarce or problematic materials, maybe less cobalt, for example, and are potentially easier to recycle or reuse later.
So tackling the source of the problem, are they making progress according to their own metrics?
The metrics show a mixed but ultimately positive trend in intensity. Yes, their total electricity consumption went up significantly between 2023 and 2024, from 8.4 million kilowatt-hours to 12.8 million kilowatt-hours.
Which makes sense if they're building and selling more cars.
Exactly. Higher production uses more energy. But the intensity metrics are improving. Their CO2 equivalent emissions per million D of revenue actually decreased from 254.4 tons down to 226.3 tons.
So more efficient emissions per dollar earned?
Correct. And similarly, the intensity of manufacturing waste per million D of revenue also decreased from 32.4 tons down to 30.6 tons.
Okay, so while total impact might be growing due to scale, they're getting cleaner and less wasteful per car or per dollar. That's a critical distinction.
It is. It shows that while EVs are cleaner to drive, the production footprint is real, but Cewmlator is actively working on reducing it and tracking their progress.
That nuance is so important. Okay, let's switch gears slightly and get into some of the cool science, using those questions from the happy comic readers. First, Martha, age 11, asked a simple but great question. Where are the batteries in an electric car? We touched on this, but it's fundamental.
It is a great question, Martha. In most BEVs, like Cewmlator's, that big flat battery pack is built right into the floor underneath where you sit. It can stretch almost the whole length and width of the car.
Like a skateboard underneath.
Kind of, yeah. It's a heavy, sealed box with hundreds, maybe even thousands, of individual battery cells inside. Putting it low helps the car handle well, lowers the center of gravity, and protects the battery in a crash. But like we said, it's sealed partly for safety. These things run at 400 volts or more, which is dangerous to touch.
Right. Definitely not something you tinker with yourself. And Noah, also 11, asked, how do rechargeable batteries work? Simple question, complex answer.
It is complex, Noah, but the basic idea is amazing science. You've got two different metal parts called electrodes, a cathode, and an anode separated by a substance called an electrolyte. In Cewmlator's lithium-ion batteries, when you use the battery like accelerating, tiny charged particles called lithium ions move through the electrolyte from the anode to the cathode. At the same time, electrons flow through the external circuit. That's the electricity powering your motor.
Okay, a chemical reaction making electricity.
Exactly. And when you recharge it, you force electricity back in, which makes the ions and electrons flow the other way, back to the anode, ready to go again. Understanding this helps scientists make batteries that store more energy, charge faster, and last longer, which is what Cewmlator's R&D team works on constantly.
That connects basic science right to EV performance, which leads nicely to Ryan, age 13, asking, is it true that EVs are faster than IC cars?
Good question, Ryan. And yes, often, especially from a standstill, many EVs are significantly faster than similar petrol cars. It's all about torque.
Torque, rotational force.
Exactly. Electric motors deliver their maximum torque almost instantly as soon as you press the pedal. Wham! Petrol engines need to rev up, go through gears to reach their peak power.
So immediate power versus building up power.
Precisely. That gives EVs that really smooth, rapid acceleration. Many PHEVs can even use both their electric motor and petrol engine together for an extra powerful boost.
Double the power.
Potentially, for short bursts. But it's all controlled by the car's computer, the ECU, electronic control unit. You could potentially tweak the ECU for more power, but in an EV, that would almost certainly mean less range and maybe stressing the battery more. Always trade-offs.
Managed power. Got it. Okay, another smart question from Coldip, age 11. The satellite navigation system in my mom's car warns her about traffic jams. How does her car know that the road is busy? This really speaks to how connected cars are now.
Coldip, that's a great observation. Your mom's car is basically talking to the internet. It likely has its own built-in connection, or it connects through her smartphone. This lets the sat-nav get real-time traffic updates from various sources, other connected cars, road sensors, incident reports.
So it knows where the jams are and can suggest different routes.
Exactly. It helps find faster ways, or at least gives a more accurate arrival time. And manufacturers use that same connection for other things, like sending software updates directly to the car.
Over-the-air updates, like for a phone.
Just like that. They might update the motor software to improve efficiency and give you a bit more range, or add new features to the touchscreen system. These usually download while you're driving and install when the car's parked and off.
So the car is constantly learning and improving.
In a way, yes. And it's often sending data back to anonymized data about journeys, performance, maybe diagnostic info. It helps manufacturers improve future cars and services. It's convenient, but yeah, it makes cars into complex, connected computers on wheels, raising questions about data privacy too.
Fascinating. Mobile data centers? But let's shift to a tougher topic, maybe the toughest. Angela, age 12, asks, what happens to old EVs? Are they recycled to make new ones? This hits that end-of-life challenge hard.
Angela's question goes right to the heart of the sustainability challenge for EVs. And the honest answer is, it's complicated and not nearly as straightforward as recycling a traditional car.
How so? Aren't cars generally recyclable?
Traditional ICE cars are, relatively easily. They're mostly iron and steel, which have well-established recycling processes. EVs are different. They have a lot more plastic, complex composites, and a huge amount of electronic waste, besides the battery. These are just harder to separate and recover efficiently.
But the battery is the main issue, right?
It's the biggest elephant in the room, yes. They contain that mix of valuable but hard-to-extract metals, nickel, cobalt, lithium. Demand for these is soaring, raising concerns about future supply and the environmental impact of mining them. And remember that statistic. Battery manufacturing accounts for maybe 45% of an EV's total manufacturing emissions. And it's precisely the hardest part to recycle effectively right now.
So the greenest part in operation is the dirtiest part in production and disposal. That's the paradox.
That's the core paradox. There's no easy, perfectly clean way to recycle them yet.
What are the current methods then? What are the options?
There are basically two main industrial approaches. Neither is perfect. One is high-temperature smelting, called pyrometallurgy. You basically melt the batteries down at extreme heat, like 1,600 degrees Celsius.
Okay. What does that recover?
It recovers nickel and cobalt pretty well, but it completely destroys the lithium, which just ends up in the waste slag. And obviously, it uses a massive amount of energy, creating its own CO2 emissions.
Not ideal. What's the alternative?
The other main route is hydrometallurgy. This involves shredding or crushing the batteries into a powder called black mass, and then using strong chemical solvents to dissolve and separate out the different metals, including the lithium.
That sounds more targeted. Does it work?
It recovers lithium, yes, along with other metals. But the shredding process still uses a lot of energy, and the chemical solvents involved are often highly toxic themselves, creating hazardous waste that needs careful, costly disposal. Another environmental headache.
So neither method is a perfect circular solution. Energy intensive and potentially polluting in different ways.
Exactly. Finding a truly efficient, low-impact, and economically viable way to recycle EV batteries at scale is probably the single biggest hurdle remaining for genuine, long-term EV sustainability. It's the missing link.
It raises that fundamental question. If the goal is a cleaner planet, how do we ensure the entire life cycle of these vehicles is addressed, not just what comes out of the tailpipe? Or rather, what doesn't come out?
Precisely. We've covered so much ground today, haven't we?
Right.
The big market picture right down to the chemistry inside a battery cell and the challenges of its afterlife. Hashtag take Trapp.
I really have. What a journey. We started way back with the surprising, almost forgotten history of electric cars from the 19th century.
Feels like ages ago now.
Right. Then we carefully unpacked all those different EV types. Cewmlator's pure BEV focus, the PHEV bridge, the HEVs, the MHEVs.
Getting that alphabet soup straight.
Exactly. Then we tackled the tough stuff. The real-world roadblocks, the higher cost, that nagging range anxiety, the battery degradation worries, and the whole complicated, sometimes frustrating public charging puzzle, including that staggering $60,000 figure for one rapid charger.
Yeah, that cost really puts the infrastructure challenge into perspective.
It certainly does. Then we zoomed in on Cewmlator, their strong market position, that bold move away from ICE, their well-designed product range from Tynie to Skkorch, the global manufacturing, the strong leadership, and those impressive financial results, especially being more profitable than their bigger rival Attomm.
Showing that focused strategy might be paying off on the bottom line.
And finally, we dove deeper into the tech and the big sustainability questions, how batteries work, how smart cars communicate, and crucially, facing up to that massive challenge of battery recycling at the end of life.
It shows that achieving sustainable is way more complex than just eliminating tailpipe emissions.
Absolutely. Understanding this whole complex ecosystem, the tech, the market, the policy, the environmental impact, it feels vital for anyone interested in where transport, technology, and sustainability are heading.
Couldn't agree more.
The shift to electric vehicles is happening. It's real. It's probably necessary. But as we've laid out today, it's definitely not a simple silver bullet solution at every single stage.
No, far from it.
Companies like Cewmlator are pushing innovation hard, making EVs more desirable and efficient. But those fundamental challenges, sourcing raw materials responsibly, reducing manufacturing impact, and solving that end-of-life recycling problem, they remind us that true sustainability is a continuous process, a journey we're still very much on.
It really is. Which leaves us with a final thought, maybe a provocative one for you, our listener, to ponder.
Go.
Thinking about everything we've discussed. The emissions from manufacturing, the resource demands, the recycling hurdles. What aspects of this deep dive make you rethink what a truly sustainable motor vehicle needs to be in the decades ahead? Are we genuinely solving the problem or just shifting it somewhere else?
That is definitely food for thought. Are we aiming for the right target or just changing the nature of the challenge? A question for another day, perhaps.
Perhaps.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Cewmlator and the complex world of the electric revolution. We hope you feel more informed, maybe more aware of the nuances, and definitely more curious about the exciting, challenging road ahead.
Thanks for listening.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.